She was the granddaughter of Mary Tudor, grandniece to Henry VIII, and eighth in line to the English throne. And at one point, there were plans to marry her to Guilford Dudley, the same man who later married Lady Jane Grey. Her bloodline was dangerously close to power, and under Elizabeth I, that made her a problem. Today, we are going to talk about the story of Margaret Clifford, the Countess of Derby, a Tudor woman born into royal favor and buried under royal suspicion. Hey friend, welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather. I've been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009 with my show, which makes it the original Tudor History Podcast. So I have this longer deep dive podcast on Eleanor Clifford coming out tomorrow, and I wanted to do a shorter video on her daughter, Margaret. Today, Margaret's a really interesting woman as well, and so we're going to talk about her. So Margaret Clifford was born in 1540. She was the only surviving child of Eleanor Brandon, Countess of Cumberland, and Henry Clifford, heir to the Clifford earldom in the north. Her mother, Eleanor, was the younger daughter of Mary Tudor, Henry VIII's sister. So this made Margaret a direct descendant of Henry VII and placed her in the Tudor line of succession. In fact, when Henry VIII drafted his final will in 1546, he named Margaret's mother as one of the heirs to the throne after his 3 children and her older sister Frances. That made Margaret 8th in line, just behind the Grey sisters. Not exactly a throne watcher, but close enough to make people nervous. Her 2 brothers, Henry and Charles, both died young, so from childhood, Margaret carried the entire dynastic weight of her branch of the family. Her mother died in 1547. Margaret was only about 7, and much of her early life was spent in the Clifford estates at Skipton or Brougham Castle. While her cousins at court jockeyed for power, Margaret grew up quietly in the north, educated, titled, and comfortably well-born. Not a lot of drama for her early life. Now, she may have grown up far from London, but that didn't stop people in power from taking notice of her. In the early 1550s, John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland, began negotiating for her to marry his son Guilford. This was the same period where he was orchestrating a marriage between his son and Lady Jane Grey, Margaret's cousin. So for a brief moment, it looked like Margaret might be absorbed into the Dudley-Grey plan to control the Tudor succession. But those plans collapsed. Guilford married Jane instead, and Margaret was then betrothed to Andrew Dudley, Guilford's uncle. That match also disintegrated after the Dudley family's spectacular fall from grace in 1553. Eventually, Margaret married Henry Stanley, Lord Strange, in 1555. He was heir to the powerful Stanley family. This is the same Stanleys who hedged their bets at Bosworth. So, we're several generations later, but they held sway still over much of Lancashire and Cheshire. Their wedding was a high-profile event, as it would be. It was actually attended by Mary Tudor, Mary I, and her husband, King Philip of Spain, themselves came to her wedding. On paper, it was a solid alliance, a union of northern nobility and royal blood, blessed by the reigning monarch. But while the ceremony may have been grand and impressive, the marriage itself would prove to be much more complicated. The couple had 4 sons, including Ferdinando Stanley. We've done an episode or a video on him. He would later become the 5th Earl of Derby and was himself considered a potential heir to Elizabeth I. On paper, Margaret had done exactly what a Tudor noblewoman was expected to do. She produced male heirs, she secured a powerful alliance, and she stayed loyal to the crown. Go her. But her marriage began to fall apart. She and Henry Stanley became increasingly estranged. They lived separately for years, and Margaret maintained her own household, including a network of servants and attendants. That level of independence was quite rare, and it was also quite risky. Margaret's proximity to the throne remained a lingering issue for her. Even though she wasn't making a play for power, others knew just how easily the succession could shift. This is also, of course, when Elizabeth I isn't married, doesn't have an heir. So here's Margaret. She's a Tudor by blood, and that, in Elizabeth's court, without an heir, was enough to make her dangerous. In the early 1580s, Margaret was accused of something that in Tudor England was taken incredibly seriously. that was using astrology to predict the death of Elizabeth and identify her likely successor. Astrology today doesn't seem dangerous. A lot of people use it for themselves as a form of meditation. The paper even lists your horoscopes, all of that. But under the Tudor law, predicting the monarch's death, especially through supernatural means, was treason. Now, whether Margaret herself consulted an astrologer or was simply implicated by someone in her household, the result was the same. She was placed under house arrest, cut off from court and from influence. No formal charges were brought, no trial was held, but there she was under house arrest and under suspicion for years. Her Tudor blood, once a source of prestige, had become a liability. Margaret died in 1596 at Clerkenwell, near the end of Elizabeth's long reign. She never returned to favor, and though her son Ferdinando became a prominent nobleman himself, he died suddenly, possibly poisoned, in 1594. Now, her granddaughter, Anne Stanley, was actually technically next in line to the throne under Henry VIII's final will, but that claim was never pressed, and by the end of the Tudor era, Margaret's branch of the family had been edged out completely. Now, she had all the ingredients of a major Tudor player. There was royal blood, political marriage, surviving children, and dynastic potential. But she lived in a world that had zero patience for potential. You were either useful or you were suspicious. So Margaret Clifford didn't stage a rebellion, she didn't publish any pamphlets or marry anybody scandalous. But she was still punished for being just a little bit too close to the crown, and in Tudor England, that was enough. So often we tell these stories of these women who were close to court and men who were close to court and had court ambition, and it ended really badly for them, like it usually did. And I see the comments, you all kind of agree as well, that if it were up to us, we would just live far, far away. Like, send me so far north. I really love Yorkshire. Yorkshire is beautiful. I love Scarborough. It's one of my favorite places. That little, you can walk along the edge of the cliffs there to Whitby. It's just gorgeous. I've been to Bamborough and to Lindisfarne. It's just gorgeous up there. Like, I would be so happy living up there, like so far from all the drama. But Margaret's story reminds us that even in Tudor England, sometimes what you did wasn't even the problem. It was just who you were. So poor Margaret Clifford never was free from suspicion just because of who she was. We know a lot about the Clifford family because of her daughter as well, who was a great chronicler of the Cliffords and wrote a lot down and gave us a chronicle of the Clifford family. So sometime we'll have to do an episode on her as well. So we will leave it there for Margaret Clifford right now. A quick note, some of you noticed that yesterday in my video, my window was down. That's because I was doing that video in the afternoon and the sun was coming right in. And we are in a stifling heat wave right now. So I hope that wherever you are chilly. Those of you in Australia, hi, gone fishing. Those of you in Australia, I kind of actually envy you right now, your chilliness. I'm looking forward to being chilly again. So, but I do like the light of summer. I don't love the roastingness, but I do like the light at 5:30 in the morning. That's super fun. Makes it so much easier to wake up. I have such a hard time waking up in the winter when it's dark. It really is punishing. Anyway, that's my story for today. I hope that you are cool and comfortable, or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, warm and comfortable, and we will leave it there. So look, if you made it this far in the video and you enjoyed it, I always appreciate a press of that like button. It helps to feed that algorithm and get our content to even more people. And I hope I earned your subscription to my channel where I put out videos like this on the regular. All right, friend, if you want to continue watching videos on the Clifford family, here is that video on Ferdinando Stanley that you might enjoy. Here's one that YouTube thinks you'll like. Thank you so much for being here with me and for spending this time with me today. There's so much you could be doing, but you chose to spend this time with me, and I hope I made it worth it. Remember, you are deeply loved. I'm so glad I shared the planet with you. I will be back very soon. Don't forget to drink your water. Stay cool. Bye.